I'd put in my booth that, there would be a Bill Cosby signing, and I would find some white guy with the name Bill Cosby out of the phone book.
This is the M-Dash Report, where media, marketing, and messaging meet the moment. He is not Arthur Baker. I am not Christopher Barger, but together, we are them. How's it going, CB?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How you doing, Arthur? Good to see you today.
I'm feeling good. I'm energized. I'm charged. And as always, it's my pleasure to introduce our talented producer, Mr. Dan Roth. Dan, how's it going?
It is a pleasure to be here. I feel like after our Sinatra chat via text, I should sing, actually.
We need to do some extra innings, outtakes or something, because we have some of the best conversations in our planning sessions, our bullpen sessions, whatever you want to call them. It's like, it's really magic. Yeah, those conversations are wonderful. And I want to say, now, in addition to the brilliant work that we do here together on the program, you guys have other things that you get into. CB, you were the guest on another podcast this past week. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about that?
Ed Garston is a fantastic guy, old contact. We worked together in the automotive industry. He was actually CNN's bureau chief here in Detroit during the early 80s, and then left journalism to go over to the dark side and go corporate. And he worked at Stellantis, bringing Chrysler and Stellantis and their brands into the social media age. And he and I did a podcast just kind of talking about a little bit about everything.
You dropped jewels, as you always do.
Oh, yeah. We went off on a whole bunch of tangents. It was a great conversation. You should definitely check out Ed Garston's Tales from the Beat.
Tales from the Beat. And Dan, I understand you have a guest appearance or two coming up. So
I do. Our friend Danielle Krischik invited me onto The Story Effect. So I'll be recording that. I don't know when it's going to air because she's
the author of this book.
Busy. The author of The Story Effect, yeah.
And the podcast of the same name. Speaking of men of many talents,
I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a fun show.
I tell you, I've been looking forward to this one personally for a while. One of the best word of mouth marketers anywhere, as he would have you know. He's a keynote speaker. He's a best-selling author. He has a newsletter on LinkedIn that I follow semi-religiously. And his very presence, I think, is a trademarkable asset. I call it the Saul Experience. So he is Saul Colt. Saul, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Appreciate you making the time, my friend. Good to talk to you.
So one accolade I did not cover in my intro is fashion icon. So anytime I see you, Saul, you are signature. Now, one of the things we do at the top of the show, we talk about what we're wearing and why and who we're wearing. Saul, who are you wearing today?
I've got my Cantors T-shirt and a minor league baseball hat. I didn't realize that it was a jacket and shirts kind of dress code.
Oh
here.
No, it's a come as you
I would
are.
have dressed up.
You were the guest. You come how you are. This is how we dress at home. Now I need to know what team your hat represents. So, because my two partners here, they have automotive industry roots. So I see this car, this lowrider on your. What team is that?
I forget the name of the team. I've got probably 20 or 30 minor league baseball hats that I just think the logos are really cool. And I don't actually know all the teams. I think this is the San Jose Giants. They every year in minor leagues, they do about a week or two where the team can adopt a second identity. And one season they did, it was all Latin America inspired. One season they did all food. So I actually have a couple of hats that are just like a grilled cheese sandwich. And I just think it's really cool, but I don't really know who the teams are or anything like that. So I don't pretend to know everything. I just, I'm a slave for fashion, Arthur. You should know that.
I mean, your splash on LinkedIn just tells us
Love it.
all.
Speaking of minor league baseball, because you're all sports fans here, do we think that minor league is actually where the more exciting baseball happens?
I don't know if the actual game is more excited, but I think the experience is more excited. I think because like they have to be. So there's way more promotions. There's way more like bring your dog to the park kind of like stuff, and so I think it's a harder working sort of experience than the majors. The majors are still cool, and a lot of the teams are trying to do like more experiential things like that, but there's more to experience than just like crazy food and stuff like that. And I think the minors sort of get that.
That's such a brilliant segue, because it's like, all right, the product major league wise is what it is. And you can compare products, but the customer experience around a minor league game, a college basketball game, there's just an energy is like, it's nuts. These people are invested in it in ways that the people who maybe paid $3,000 for a seat just don't get.
And the Savannah Bananas. I mean, there's a marketing case study right there.
Don't even get me started. I am a former player and I'm a purist, and I think what the Savannah Bananas do, while good from a marketing standpoint, is the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. It drives me nuts.
Thank you so much. I agree with you 1,000,000%.
It's fun, isn't it?
I don't find it fun. Like I think what they've accomplished is incredible. Like good for them and everything like that. But when like if a fan catches a foul ball and the guy's out, like come on, like it's not even close to baseball. And like you want to do all the dancing.
Like XFL. That's like XFL football.
You want to do dancing, do it in between the half innings. I'm all for that.
Thank you.
But when the pitcher is like doing the worm and then gets up and throws the ball, like it's not, it's like I don't know why anyone would ever. And I'm a Harlem Globetrotters fan. Like I've got the shorts and the top. I've got
the showboat. Saul, come on.
Yeah, I've got a Harlem Globetrotters lunchbox. But I don't know why you'd go see the Globetrotters more than once every 4, 5, or 6 years. Yeah. Like I could tell you who's going to win tonight, and I don't even know who they're playing.
It's not the suspense. Oh man!
No Washington Generals here in baseball. Not a fan.
Okay, so we'll get into some serious interviewing, some serious podcast journalism here.
Well, Saul, let's start with you. And again, thanks for being the guest today. You have achieved an awful lot in your career. You, again, word of mouth marketer, one of the best, keynote speaker. You've spoken all over the place. Big time in demand guest. How'd you get from where you started to where you are here? Kind of walk everybody through your career progression.
I think my career happened because I accidentally realized at a very young age that attention is the whole game. Like not attention in the shallow influencer sense, but like I mean like emotional attention or real attention. So I came into marketing through, I grew up in a family business. I started my own company. I had a comic book publishing company for about a decade that, I've sort of had 3 careers. I had comic books and I had startups and then I had my own agency. And, I came into marketing in the comic book world where I was selling a parody superhero book that was in black and white. I was charging $1 more than Batman and Spider-Man, and it was characters nobody had ever heard of. So I had to be outrageous. I had to be a character. I had to do things that would get people's attention. So I was doing treasure hunts at comic book conventions. I was doing crazy things where I'd put in my booth that, there would be a Bill Cosby signing at 2 p.m, and I would find some white guy with the name Bill Cosby out of the phone book and put him in a colorful sweater and have him in my booth and stuff like that. So it was always about that, and I think that one of the through lines of my career is like I am a classically trained marketer now, but in the very beginning, I didn't believe there were any rules. I still don't believe there's a lot of rules, but I didn't believe there were any rules. So I made my own. I took huge chances. I didn't always think of, the possible blowback. Now I do and stuff like that. But I did things that would always and still to this day make people shake their head and scratch their head. And that changes your mindset permanently. It's like instead of saying to yourself, how do we advertise? How do we get people's attention? You start thinking about how do you become part of the conversation. And, it's like I've worked with incredible brands like FreshBooks and Zipcar and Nike and eBay and HP and Twitter and stuff like that. And I've worked with a ton of startups with huge ambitions and tiny budgets. And when you don't have money, you become overly creative. You learn that creativity is just a problem solving with personality. And I think if anything, that's kind of how I got to where I am. A lot of my career was just built on ideas that sounded stupid the first 4 times. We did skywriting for a cloud-based, computer company. We drove across America to eat dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 18 days with customers of a brand to not only thank them for being customers, but also understand them better. And we recreated an Evel Knievel jump for accounting software. These are ridiculous sentences, never mind actually going through and doing them. And that's exactly why people remembered them. And
I would be very pleased to throw accounting software into Snake Canyon. I would be totally happy about that.
Oh, Dan, no, you have to hear this story. What he was going to do. Saul, give us a quick thing when killing the mascot. You understood the assignment too well.
The one thing that I wasn't able to do is in my time at FreshBooks, the CEO decided that it was time to move away from the mascot and come up with a new kind of visual identity. And he said we should kill the mascot. And a lot of times with creativity, you take things super literally and you sort of exaggerate it. So I came back the next day with a plan that we weren't going to kill the mascot in a short period of term, but the mascot was going to die over a 6-month period. And in all our ads, this cartoon guy was going to get thinner and thinner and thinner until he couldn't stand anymore. He was going to be sitting. And then finally, he would just fall over one day. And we'd announce that the mascot died and you could make donations to the Freelancers Union or whatever. And,
that's awesome.
And then we would just introduce this new mascot and stuff like that. But everybody thought that was just a little too dark for our brand, which I still disagree.
I disagree with. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great idea.
Welcome to the Saul Experience. Did I not tell you?
No, that's it makes me think because the thing that you pointed out was the small startups. You're scrappy and it's a little scruffy, and you don't have the money, and you know that. So the things that you talked about, though. They are going to where the people are. And no matter the size of the brand, isn't that the thing that I think you forget sometimes when you get in those large organizations, or they're kind of hidebound. They want to use their traditional channels. They want to do it the way we've always done it versus your customer is here.
I think we live in a time where it's noisier than ever. If you're not trying to break through, you're kind of wiping your backside with your budget. You have to be always trying to stand out. You have to always be trying to cut through the noise because it's just it's just so messy and dirty and everything out there that people have just tuned everything out, and it's kind of a shame.
You know what gets me? You know what gets me now, Saul? How many commercials and ads that I see that I'm like, this was the PowerPoint presentation. These are the bullets from the PowerPoint, and you've put them up on a billboard, and it mortifies me. I'm like, oh, this is lazy to its fullest extent.
We've walked away from projects, and it's hard to because it's money, but we've walked away from projects because it's been watered down so much from the original idea that one, We don't believe it's going to get any results for the client. And two, we don't really want to put our name on it at that point.
Right.
And so it's like some people think we're difficult. Some people think, we're whatever. But in some ways, by protecting ourselves, we're also protecting the client, because we don't ever want to be tagged to an awful campaign and stuff like that. And occasionally, by explaining why we're walking away, it does open some people's eyes. And, but half the time we walk and they feel they know better. And I'm really kind of like an eyes forward person. I never, I don't wish ill on anybody that doesn't want to work with us or anything like that. If we walk or they walk, I don't harbor any negative feelings. I don't watch the campaign to see if we were right or they were right. It's just, it's always forward. That's, right. Otherwise you make yourself crazy.
I think I know how you're going to answer this next question based on what you've just been saying. But what is one thing that you really wish, Saul, more marketers and communicators actually understood? And I think it's that need to stand out and cut through the noise. Would you agree?
The job is not to avoid criticism. The job is to create movement. And movement requires emotion. I think, we've accidentally trained an entire generation of marketers to prioritize internal approval over external reaction. Everything gets filtered through fear. Will I lose my job? Will legal approve this? Will procurement approve this? Why do they have any say in anything? Who knows? Will one angry person on LinkedIn complain? Meanwhile, the customer sees none of this because the work became invisible halfway through the approval process. And like the irony is that brands people admire most are almost always the brands that made somebody uncomfortable at some point. Nike, Liquid Death, Harley Davidson, Old Spice, even Apple during the Think Different era was like a little edgy. They're not edgy anymore because they don't really have to. And I hate when people use Apple.
They're popular now.
Yeah.
They are what they were trying to be.
Apple is an anomaly. I don't like using them as an example for anything because I don't think anyone could ever recreate what Apple did. But nobody builds emotional connection by sounding like everybody else. And honestly, I think modern marketing has become over-measured and underfelt. We can track clicks perfectly now, but we're losing our instinct for magic. But I've been fired for projects because I've told the VP of marketing or the CMO that they don't know their customers, and I'm not here to impress them. I'm here to impress their customers because the VP of marketing is not their target market. So I'm only trying to attract and only care about what the customers care about, what they want to feel, how they want to react. The CMO, if I'm selling a $5, a product or whatever, and the CEO is making $1.5 million a year, chances are he's so far out of their world that he's got no idea what these people want unless he's read, a PDF or something. But, I go back to having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with 18,000 customers over 18 days or something, whatever the number was. And it was all about, on that trip, I learned that no geography is even the same. If you're marketing a national product, there's so much nuance between the South and the coasts and everywhere in between and stuff like that. So I wish marketers knew more about what I know, or I wish they would hire me so I could afford one of those fancy jackets you guys are wearing, and I'm not wearing a 25-year-old t-shirt.
So the measuring question is really interesting because I found myself in that same situation where it's like your metrics, like you measure because you can, and I think that's what I've found is the numbers become the goal. Is that something you've seen and you've had to? How do you counteract that? Where the goal becomes making the numbers go up, and the KPIs are kind of they're picked for weird reasons, or to justify somebody's cushy position versus actually being effective. How do you talk somebody out of that?
There's a quote that I don't even know who said it. It wasn't me. I've seen it attributed to about 18 different people. But the quote is that, not everything great can be measured and not everything measurable is great. Right. And I really love that quote because, you can performance market or fine tune your targeting and everything right out of business. It's like there's brands that, if I leave something in a shopping cart, because I was really just browsing or whatever, and they're doing what they're supposed to do, but I'll get an email for 7 straight days. Yeah. And it completely turns me off of that brand that I don't want to go back and give them the money, even if it's something that I really want. But you know what? If I got one email from them that was worded completely different, that was like, hey, you really like that sweater. What is it you like about it? I'd probably have an immeasurably different view of this company instead of just, it's like, hey,
you left something in your cart. You want to finish this transaction? You left something in your cart.
We're willing to give you like $1 off. And then 3 days later, it's 10% off. And then 4 days later, it's 20% off.
What is this thing actually worth? I don't think I would never.
I would never buy anything from that brand on first try. There used to be a joke in the marketing world. I don't follow this particular brand that much anymore, so I don't know if it's the same, but there used to be a joke that if you ever wanted to go, if you ever wanted to buy anything from the Gap, just go into the store, wait 10 minutes, and it'll be 40% off. It's like it's sort of the same feeling a lot with some of these performance marketing brands and stuff like that, where you don't build loyalty through performance marketing. You build loyalty through emotion. You build loyalty through caring. You build loyalty, and you can track that stuff, not to the decimal point the same way you can performance marketing. But there was a year when I was working for a client where 62% of all new business came in through my initiatives, and I wasn't doing anything digital. It was all out there in the real world and stuff like that. So it's what I do works. I have a harder time qualifying it to people, but I do have the metrics to track things and stuff like that. So when I find people that really get it, I tend to work with people for 4, 5, 6 years, and very few consultants can say that. I've told people it's just cheaper to bring me on as full time at that point. I want to be the best in the world at a very small skill set. Because I don't believe, and we can go into a conversation about AI and all sorts of things, but I think generalists are going to starve to death. I think you have to be a specialist, and I'll tell you, I chose word of mouth marketing or creative marketing, and a lot of things fall under that umbrella. But, there are years where I starved to death because all of a sudden growth hacking became a thing and nobody wanted to do what I do anymore. So thankfully, I didn't have revenue for many, many months, but I had good years before, and I live kind of like a Holocaust survivor mentality. I'm always afraid that someone's going to throw me in a train one day. So I'm never like outlandish or spending and stuff like that, because I've seen I wouldn't wish my career on anybody. I've had the highest of the highs, covers of magazine. I've had the lowers of lows, where I go almost a year without revenue. But because I chose something, it always comes back and it always works out. And, people always chase this new thing. I remember people would say, it's like, we're not going to go word of mouth because we've developed a Pinterest strategy now. And, how's that working out for people, nowadays? And
so I see my timekeeper, CB is the timekeeper. He's giving me a face. It is now crunch time.
So most corporate communications and marketing is beige. Okay, we said it. In a marketplace where attention spans are short and clutter is king, safe often means boring, and it results in posts that are liked by employees out of obligation, but don't get noticed by almost anyone outside the organization, meaning you're likely to be shouting into an echo chamber. You've built a career around the idea that brands need to stand out rather than blend in, and I think you've called it peacocking. But most companies still default to that safe, neutral, and forgettable. In your experience, what's the real cost of playing it straight, and why do so few brands actually reckon with that?
You know, I think the cost is just invisibility. It's cultural decay inside the company. When organizations get addicted to safe marketing, they slowly train creativity out of their teams. And, you know, if there's one thing we've learned with, remote work is usually it's the loudest person gets the projects. And,
right.
and, you know, people stop pitching wild ideas because they know wild ideas will die in meetings because they've been trained to play it safe. And that's when companies become boring from the inside out. And boring companies eventually become vulnerable companies because culture and creativity are connected. So you lose staff, you lose, loyal users, you lose like media doesn't, find you. And especially with AI now, it's it's not the same the way you could game SEO and things like that. If
right.
AI doesn't know about you, you're not invisible. You're out of work because, at least with Google searches, if you're on the third page, maybe somebody would still find you. AI is only going to give one or two answers to real questions now. So you better stand out. You better take risks. You better be like trying to hit triples every time you're at plate because, it's not the same anymore. And like I said earlier about attention is oxygen. And brands need to realize that. We live in such a weird time where it's like cover your ass mentality, but because you don't want to get fired, but also like you don't want to bring the whole company down too.
Right.
It sounds almost so as though being mentioned by AI as a cautionary tale is almost worth more than just, not being that top answer. So you call yourself the guy brave brands call, amongst other things. But what about the clients who come to you wanting to be brave and then flinch when it's actually time to pull the trigger? What does that moment look like? And how do you talk someone off the ledge of their own caution?
Well, I'll tell you, I say this all the time. Everybody wants to work with me until they find out what working with me is actually like. Because I'm gonna try to get you out of your comfort zone, and I usually care more about their company being great than sometimes they do. So everybody wants to legendary marketing until it's time to approve legendary marketing. People love the idea of boldness. They hate the feeling of risk. The moment usually looks the same. The room gets quiet. Legal gets nervous. Someone says, what if people don't like it? And my response is always, some people should dislike it. And that's how you know it has edges,
Right.
I'm obviously not talking about being offensive for attention. I'm talking about having a point of view, distinctiveness, and I have to always slow down when I say that or it doesn't come out properly. Distinctiveness requires tension. I actually empathize with clients when they get scared because marketers love to pretend courage is easy. It's not. That's why you're hiring someone like me, because my level of risk and my level of confidence only is there because I've been doing this for 20 years. And I tell people, you're not paying me to execute. You're paying me to worry, because I've literally worried about every possible scenario before we even do it. And I've got plan C, D, E, and F and things like that. If you're a CMO inside a big company, you're balancing politics, risk, public reaction, internal expectations, there's real pressure there. So I never mock fear, but I do try to remind people that fear and danger are not the same thing. Usually the scariest part of bold marketing is just simply standing out. And a lot of executives have spent their careers learning how not to stand out. Right. So, like, I tell people the goal is not chaos. The goal is memorability.
Sometimes the goal is chaos. And chaos can be good.
I actually think it's
this is my spirit
chaos.
animal. I'm thinking of a song lyric. And actually, the first time, this quote probably transcends music, but the first time I ever heard it was in a song. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to. Nobody wants to die. Right. And that's the irony. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I wanted to follow up on the idea that there's that caution. Like, where do you think that comes from? Because often the initial discussion is about something bold and brave, and then are we training that risk taking out of people within our culture, our corporate culture, the schools that they go to? Like, where do they learn to not be bold? They always compare the thing that they want to do to companies that have been bold. So where do they learn to lose their nerve?
So I would say that we're not only teaching people not to be bold, we're teaching. We're not even teaching marketing anymore, or we're not creating marketers. We're creating tool experts. So it's like people don't really call themselves marketers anymore. They're HubSpot, whatever, or a Salesforce, whatever. I don't know what the exact designation each, platform sort of runs.
I'm a prompt engineer.
Yeah, but marketing is as much about human understanding and psychology as it is manipulation and coercion. And it's like, if you know how to send 25 concurrent tested nudge campaigns or whatever, that's wonderful. That is a skill. But if you don't know why you're sending those campaigns and you don't know what to put in them to actually make someone excited or convert, like you're an engineer, you're not a marketing person, or you're a software something or other, you're not a marketing person. And until we start training people on marketing again, I don't know where you build risk into that, because there's no reason for a HubSpot, expert to take any risk or anything.
And then when
that.
HubSpot's gone, suddenly we've niched ourselves out of existence. So let's do AI for a moment, because it's been at the periphery of what we've been talking about. But yeah, I need to hear Saul's take. So as we speak, AI is flooding every channel with content that looks competent, it sounds polished, but it's very forgettable. Now, does that actually make the case for being more of a peacock, more urgent than ever, or does it raise the bar so high that most brands can't even clear it?
I think because AI is becoming sort of predominant, we'll say, it's exactly why human creativity matters now more, not less. Like, the AI is flattening the middle. It can generate competent content. It can generate polished. It can generate structurally correct LinkedIn posts with fake vulnerability. But what it struggles with is humanity. And I use the word taste a lot when I talk about AI. Like, it struggles with real taste. It struggles with real tension. It struggles with real weirdness. It struggles with real emotional risk. So AI is making average content better and infinite, which means distinctiveness becomes more valuable. I think AI is exposing something uncomfortable, and that is that a lot of marketing content was already mediocre before AI showed up. AI has kind of industrialized it now. Now, everybody can generate polished looking content in seconds, which means polished is no longer impressive. So that's why everything I write, I try to have real taste, real point of view, humor. I throw a lot of sexual innuendo in, because I don't think AI is going to really own that space or anything like that. I try to be original, and I try to use a lot of emotional honesty, because that's the stuff that makes humans human. Sex and awkwardness.
He's bold. He's bold. And awkwardness. So, AI doesn't know what it was like to be a teenager with zits. It doesn't. It just can't.
I wrote a LinkedIn post the other day about women's pubic hair and how it ties to marketing. And I didn't see you comment on that, Arthur. Or maybe you did. I'm just kidding with you. But,
I probably conscientiously just said, yeah, no, I'm not putting my face next to that. Because I am a corporate guy, but you're my spirit animal. So go ahead.
The point of the article was I saw this woman on Instagram who she does get ready with me videos, you know, when women get dressed, and she starts in her underwear, and she's got just a massive patch of 70s pubic hair, and she wears pants that are purposely below her pubic line, so there's like a 1/4 inch of pubic hair that is visible when she's fully dressed, kind of over her waistline. And I wrote about this because how, like, the first time I saw it, I thought it was so shocking, and then the second time I saw it, I thought it was daring. Then the third time I saw it, I thought it was like maybe the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then the fourth time I saw it, I'm like, I want every woman in the world to do this because I think it's just like it's so different and unusual. And so the article is really about the more you see unusual things, the more you become conditioned to them, and they don't become like risky anymore. And like, and I don't think AI could write that article. So that's you know, like, people are exhausted by sanitized corporate language. They want voices and honesty, and I think brands have to own that if they want to win in the next decade. Like, we have to sound like people.
Dan, I don't know what you're going to do with this episode, you nor the FCC, but
no,
I told you, I'll bring you experience. I'm bringing you the Saul Experience. Here it is.
Don't let our puritanical culture get in your way. Look, I think it's a great point. I mean,
I did a podcast. I did a podcast last Friday, I think, and there was a gentleman who's an observant Christian gentleman, and I'm all for believe what you want to believe, but he was very he found my colorful descriptions of things a little offensive, and he left the podcast halfway through and told me I should find God, which I think is...
I thought... No,
and in that moment, you won. You live in his head.
It's not about winning. It's not about winning.
Rent free. I'm word of mouth. The word of mouth marketer has done exactly what he says he's going to do. I'm living in your head rent free, baby, all day.
It did prove my point, but it's never about offending people, and never about like things like that. I didn't go purposely to try to drive this person to the edge, but it does prove the point that real emotion, and that person would have never, bought into my thinking from the beginning. So, word of mouth and standing out is also the quickest way to find your targeted customer. Right. Because people who aren't going to, go for the ride are going to leave real quick, leaving the driveway open.
Right.
Well, it's I've read both testaments, and they say things.
My mother's a devout Catholic. If she didn't tell me to find Jesus at least once a week, I'm not doing my job.
But there's within that volume, it talks about listening and accepting and not judging. So it's interesting to me that you would remove yourself from the conversation versus learning. Like, as marketers, you got to sit through stuff that you're maybe offended by or you don't politically agree with. It's almost like being a journalist where you're hearing, you're not arguing with this person, you're not judging, you're understanding. And kind of what you talked about with the shifting perception, that's used politically all the time as the Overton window. I mean, you could come up with a different name for it. You could call it the waistline window or something, but it's still it's the same idea though, right? You introduce an idea or a concept or something that shocks and gets attention, and then it becomes normalized. I mean, it's why our entertainment now looks so much different than it did in the 50s when Ricky and Lucy were sleeping in different beds.
We'll just do one more, and then we'll go into buzzer beaters. Saul, if someone listening to this is right now, communicator, marketers, even a business founder, and they want to start being bold and peacocking, for lack of a better way of putting it, but having no idea where to begin, what's the first thing you'd tell them to do tomorrow morning?
It's all about changing, perception, and a lot of it is internal. So I would tell people to stop asking, would anyone hate this, and start asking, would anybody talk about this? That one question changes everything. Like there's look at your industry and identify the biggest unwritten rule everyone follows. There's usually opportunity hiding in there. Like most great marketing comes from somebody willing to zig emotionally while everyone else zags corporately. And honestly, you don't have to become Red Bull overnight. You can just become slightly more human than your competitors, and people will notice it. Like that alone is often enough to stand out.
Wow.
Excellent.
Well, that brings us to buzzer readers. It's time for buzzer readers. This is a round robin of rapid fire questions and hot takes, Saul. And there's no telling where the conversation will take us. Today's buzzer beater is brought to you by Saul. What would you like to plug? Where can people find you? What are you up to? Because this segment is going to be sponsored by you, because you're going to give us one of the most memorable buzzer beater segments we've ever had. I'm calling it right now.
I think you should buy my book. Everything I talk about is in here. The only creative process that matters. It's a real book. It's got lots of pages. It's not a pamphlet. If you go to my website, theideaintegration.com, I'll send you a signed copy, or you can get it at Amazon or anywhere online. But let's get to the buzzer beater.
Yes.
So the annual White House Correspondents Association dinner was disrupted last week by an apparent assassination attempt on the life of the president. This put the media, who are the main attendees of this function, in an increasingly familiar position where they were part of this story, not just reporting on it as observers. Was there a network or reporter whose work stood out to you as outstanding during coverage of the incident? And how do you think it changes the story when the press is part of the story?
I think that the only person, the only journalist that I followed and got excited about was Triumph, the insult comic dog.
Bob Schmeigel, yeah, man.
Yeah, he covered it in exactly the way an event like that should be covered. And if he doesn't win, if he doesn't win a Pulitzer, I'll be a little upset.
I still love his the thing that he did where everybody was lined up for the Star Wars movie. You can find it on YouTube, and it's classic Triumph, and it's the best.
Which button do you push to call your mother?
Right.
I did see one, and I wish I could remember now, but there was a reporter for CNN who FaceTimed. While he's basically ducking underneath the tables, he's FaceTiming what's going on there. And I thought that was a rather interesting modern version of the rush to the payphone booth.
So in all honesty, I don't recall the exact reporters I was listening to on YouTube when all this unfolded. I know it was late at night, and I was shocked and intrigued. I can't tell you who, but I can tell you where they were from. So I was looking at NBC's channel, CNN, CBS, BBC. And there was a lot of stuff out there in the moment, traditional big media outlets, and there's individual YouTuber stuff, too. And I come from a time where there were officials, there were authorities. So I tend to seek them out when I want to know something. I did not go to TikTok.
It all reminded me of that part of Apocalypse. I think it's either Apocalypse Now or Full Metal Jacket. It might be Full Metal Jacket, when they get in theater and there's a camera crew there, and the director's like, run past the camera, and they're not anywhere near danger. It's just
Are you talking about Tropic Thunder?
Yeah, it's just, I'm so cynical about it. First of all, the whole idea of the White House Correspondents' Dinner is like, your job as a journalist, right? It's the trope. You're there to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, but it's all of these comfortable people getting in a room and acknowledging, like, we're just playing the game. And that is so offensive to me. So I think the thing you need to do with this is always remember.
Also, that go ahead.
Yeah, it's 100%. Like, look, if I'm too tribal. If I'm covering those politicians, we are not friends. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to just continue to jab at you. That's my job.
And the same president that skipped that dinner multiple times decided to show up this year. Okay.
But your job, one thing, because it's very important. Please go seek out the On the Media Breaking News Guide. and listen to that and absorb that. That is what you should do anytime there's an incident like this, because otherwise so much nonsense happens. And that is all I'll say.
Former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted by a North Carolina grand jury for an allegedly threatening Instagram post featuring 86.7. I don't know what that means, but like 8647. 8647, which the Trump administration claims represented a threat of assassination. So in light of the events at the White House Correspondents Association dinner, is there a valid case to be made that this was inflammatory rhetoric, whether Comey intended it as a threat or not? Or is this just a deliberate attempt to have a chill effect on criticism by opponents of the administration? Dan, we're going to start with you.
This is A, it's not inflammatory. B, also that document that we hold up as sort of like, fundamentalists now, it says he can say it. The way they're trying to inflate 86 as some kind of mobster term. Look, I don't know what kind of shitty movies he saw on WPIX back in the day in the middle of the night. No,
Chuck
it's
Norris
not a
movies.
gangster
Rest
term.
in peace, Chuck Norris. A lot of those, right?
I mean, no, it's all nonsense. And that's, please just be skeptical. Be a skeptic.
CB, what's your take?
It actually, for me, brings up a really interesting conversation that goes beyond this actual incident, which is how much responsibility do the social media platforms have for quote policing content on their sites? If somebody puts up a manifesto, like the guy who charged the association dinner, is Facebook responsible for that? Is the individual responsible for that? Do we really want to put a bunch of Silicon Valley tech billionaires in charge of policing what's the threat and what's not? Do we, it's an interesting conversation, and I don't have a particular answer for it, but who is responsible deciding what's a threat and what's not is, I think, the bigger question that is called mind here.
Well, that's the Section 230 question.
Okay, Dan, you've had your time.
I'm sorry,
you conceded your time to the senator from Canada. Saul.
I just think how much more interesting, social media would be if no politicians were allowed to use the platforms. I think it's become like a weaponized thing. So do I think he was trying to be negligent? Not on purpose, but I think a lot of people also are, it's become trite and trivial. So they don't actually think of the power that a tweet actually has. So
I'm gonna pick up on the on purposeness in my take. So I think we live in the era of the subliminal diss and the accidentally on purpose dog whistle. And without getting political, because this is not a political program, all comments are my own. They don't reflect the views of Christopher Barger, Dan Roth, or the M-Media Enterprise. But I find it really interesting in this case, considering who the target was, no pun intended, and how he himself and his people use these same tactics and dangerous language and insinuations in very high-profile public situations. Again, no political agenda here. It's a direct fact. He's done it. He does it regularly. So while the accusation against Mr. Comey may have merits, it's kind of like the pot calling the kettle some shade of warm to me. That's my take. CB, take us to the next one.
Love it. All right. So the ratings for the 2025 NFL draft were down 3% from 2025, even though they tried to streamline the process and shorten the time between picks. This is a football question, but has the draft reached a saturation point? And is there such a thing as too much of a good thing?
Oh, no, it's not just an NFL question at all. So I personally love watching major sports drafts, NFL and NBA in particular. I think Major League Baseball could take a lesson from the basketball and the football folks in terms of extending the seasonal excitement around their brands. So I enjoy digging into the stats and the highlights, like before the event even happens, the personal stories of these young people whose lives and their families' lives are about to change. And I'm extra excited when my New York Football Giants, I have a semi-competent draft, which they did this year. They killed it. So I think part of the problem this year, and maybe this whole decline, was the time slot. So this is the time of year in the U.S. where we have 3 sports having active league play at the same time: baseball, basketball, and hockey. Now, that night when they had the NFL draft, it was up against the first round of the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, and probably a bunch of baseball games. So to me, you don't fly your product into that. You pick a day where there's nothing else happening or almost nothing else happening, and you do that. You don't count a program against these other big deals. So I was literally channel flipping between the New York Knicks playoff game against the Hawks and the NFL draft. I think it's just an unfortunate program decision.
Saul, you got a thought?
I could not care less about any drafts. I think that they're so overproduced and whatever. I like I like when it was like Larry Bird got the phone call that's like, "Hey, you've been drafted," and he just so happened to be like drinking lemonade on his back porch,
eating a bowl of cereal. Like, really?
Yeah. It's gotten a little crazy when I see Gary Vaynerchuk like in the upper mezzanine wearing his Jets jersey and stuff like that. It's like, calm down. It's like,
or Drewski or ISO Speed.
Yeah.
All right. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's a well-known trope that communications and PR marketing are among the most stressful professions one can choose. Up to 92% of PR professionals reporting job-related stress affecting their mental health. To help break down the stigma around mental health and to help our fellow communicators and marketers with their mental health, Saul, what's something you've tried that eases the pressure on your own situation and keeps you calm?
The obvious joke here would be masturbation, but I'm gonna take this seriously.
We're canceled. Yeah. It's a wrap, but this is the best. This is a way to go out
at least he's not on the call. That's good. He's just waiting. Self-restraint is great. I love it.
But it's like I found that like going for walks in the middle of the day. I literally take a nap for like 30 minutes.
Naps are important.
Take a power nap and stuff like that. I think creative people need hobbies where that isn't work related. The internet has turned every interest into performance, and I think that's really like a horrible thing. I think we underestimate how important real human friendships are in this industry, and we like all those things should be weighed much heavier.
Yeah, I listen to ambient water sounds like all day. And I also listen to some of those sleep meditations on YouTube. There's some nights where I wake up wondering, like, what did the autoplay mode in YouTube actually, is it going to be one morning I wake up and I'm Wesley Snipes from Demolition Man, or I'm eating kale and have a man bun, like I've just been changed. But I do know this, our profession is very stressful. It's mentally taxing. Burnout is real. So you need to balance yourself with things that you truly enjoy as a person. Treat yourself with care and find things in life to look forward to. Otherwise, this incarnation of the world will eat you alive. And I also paint too. That's a thing. So that does it for this edition of the M-Dash Report. On behalf of Christopher Barger, Dan Roth, and the entire crew, I'm Arthur Baker, wishing you farewell, fond regards, and good fortune for the future. Keep dashing.